Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you're coming in from, for this afternoon's seminar or webinar on psychological safety and how it impacts on investigations. We get involved around the world on investigations and incidents, and there's a common theme that we can actually change the culture and the outcomes of this based on how people feel. So that's what I'm going to be talking about over the next 45 minutes, a bit about culture, etc. So we'll kick off, if I can share the screen. I'll take you through the next 45 minutes. As Lauren says, any questions at all, put them out there. Let's keep it sort of open and interactive if we can. Quite happy to take questions at the end. And even if you think of some after the webinar, I'd be very happy to come back to you. So hopefully you can see the screen. One of the many questions on Zooms, can you hear us and can you see the screen? So my name's Kevin Hard, working for a company called Ryder Marsh O'Cade, been there for many, many years. And we're a small organization, but we have an impact globally. We're actually in America at the moment, Australia, Spain, doing a lot of work on safety culture with leadership and frontline, etc. And again, like I say, we found some very key threads when we're out and about with these people globally, and it's about communication. It's about how people feel. Is it safe to talk about safety? Very simple question, but it has a massive impact. So a little bit about me, for those that haven't seen me before. I speak around the world. I spoken in Bahrain a couple of years ago for the ASSE on a culture of care, modern leadership. I've been a member of the Royal Society of Arts since 2014, based on some of the work I've done on a culture of care that we'll be talking about as we go through today. I have got a CMI Level 7 strategic leadership qualification, so I think it's quite important for myself, if I'm talking about leadership, to know a little bit more about it. I've sat on some advisory groups advising on culture of HSE, and I actually co-led a paper on the impact of engagement on sustainability and risk. So I'll mention that later on as well. So I like to get involved in culture of care and people and the impact we can have on those people. I also head up a thought leadership group, the EBNI group, EBNE, excellent, but it's never enough, is it? We think we're doing well, and we probably are. Most of us are doing a good job. We're working hard, things are going well. But it's never enough. We can never stop getting better. And these are some of the guys who come along and we talk together, listen to each other, learn from each other. And they come to learn some of the stuff I'm going to be sharing with you today. So that's a bit of background. So here's my first question, really. What would you rather be involved in? You know, incident investigation or learning review? And I know it's only words. Words and language mean a lot to people. And if you can back that up with your culture, with reality, you can have a massive difference in what we're doing out there. So incident investigation, I mean, the words themselves, an incident, are going to be investigated. And I think this is traditionally most of the companies we talk to or listen to, that's what they have. Some of them who've got a better culture actually do mean a learning review. And one of the companies I've sat on the culture board with, we changed that language from incident investigation to learning review. And within weeks, they had so much more information coming through because they communicated the fact they weren't going to point fingers. They weren't going to investigate. They were going to learn something and share that learning and move on from that. And I picked up from that, your culture determines your outcomes. If you've got a pointy finger blame culture, you're going to crack on, you're going to pick on somebody straight away and you move on. That culture is not a good place to be. If you have an outcome where you have learned something, you haven't blamed somebody, you've learned something, we're going to share this learning, becoming proactive, that shows you've got a culture that cares about your people and will have a massive difference if you can communicate that effectively around the rest of the organization. And your best communicators are your front line. They believe you care about them and that you haven't picked on them. They'll go and tell their friends. You don't have to go out and do that. So massive difference on a simple question there. Yeah, incident investigation or learning review. Big, big difference in the outcomes. So culture of care that I talk about promotes psychological safety. If you care about your people, you're listening to them, not telling them, you're not pointing fingers at them, etc. You're going to promote that psychological safety straight away. They're going to feel safe to talk. The whole environment, people are actually engaging with each other and listening to each other and learning from each other. And we all know that in the long run, companies care and focus on their people, the most successful and competitive in the world. Like I say, we work globally. We've got some extremely successful companies. It takes time, of course it does. You need the right people in the right places, the right leaders, the right approach to do that. But wow, are they the most successful in the world? And I get very frustrated with some leaders who, yeah, best assets are people. We really care about our people. They don't. And you can tell it. They're using the words, the language of that, but you can tell by their behaviors. But they don't really care about it. But this guy back 2,500 years ago, he understood that the most important asset is our people. And it really is true. And again, I'm going to be showing that, sharing some research as we go through the next sort of half hour, 40 minutes or so, that backs that up and proves it. So you get some big names out there on Wikipedia saying, yes, assets, most valuable assets are people. I think Richard Branson, bless him, is always using that. So I think they've attributed it to him now, because on Wiki or Google, the person that says it most gets attributed to it. But this guy 2,500 years ago realized that if we care about our people, we'll get somewhere. And it's a shame we seem to have lost that over the last sort of 100 years or so. So what I'm going to be talking about is three areas, really. Why taking care of our people, promoting the psychological safety is, I mean, it's legal. We know that. I'm just going to touch on that. It's a smart thing to do. Business-wise, I'm going to show you exactly what can happen, what does happen. And it's the right thing to do in terms of our people. And I'm going to share some research, again, that might make you think a little bit differently about well-being. And I'll talk about that later. So the legal thing to do, just very briefly, a couple of slides on this. Before any event, you have to be able to claim and prove, if you had an incident or an accident, you've got to be able to prove that you listened, encouraged, and coordinated. If you're not listening to your front line, you're not going to learn. So did you listen? They're doing the job. They can actually see and understand what could be better, what might go wrong. But often we tell them what to do, don't we? We don't go out and listen to them. We go out and talk to them. Subtle difference. We go out and listen to them and do something about it. Wow, are we moving ahead? So if you haven't listened, encouraged, and coordinated with your front line, then you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. The safety of your people came first by a very long way. Well, of course it did, but did it really? If I was to go out and ask the front line guys, do you think safety comes first here? It's a big question, and we get a lot of different answers out there. But you've got to be thinking about these things. The top took and takes a vigorous interest in safety. Well, let's hope they do, because if they don't, they come and bite them on the bum. It really can. So these are the things you've got to be thinking about. Now, that's about listening to your people, finding out what might be going on, becoming proactive, not reactive. Because if you're reactive, it's too late. Actually, on the day, so that's before things happened, if something has happened on the day, did you act quickly, decisively, and sensibly? Well, if you don't know what's going on out there, how can you be sensible? So it's about listening. It's about promoting psychological safety, where people feel safe to talk. They can tell you things that might happen. Talk about the company later on, Chet. The guy will talk to you anytime about anything. But Dave, I was out with the European head of safety, the director, and the frontline guys came up to him as we were walking around the site and started chatting with him. What a great place to be that is. They're coming up with new ideas all the time. And they acted on those decisively, sensibly, quickly, because they were listening to the front line. Yeah. Really, really important. The front line felt they could talk openly because of the psychological safety. Decision making was informed and swift. Well, it is informed. Great. You're listening. That's a great place to be. And I'm not saying everybody's like this. You've got to be thinking about how important this is. We have the best information available to the right people. The best information often comes from the front line. They can make decisions based on information, not instruction. Yeah. A lot of the time we tell them what to do. Actually, they're doing the job. They're doing the job based on information, not instruction. They can feedback stuff to you that you should be picking up and learning if you're a manager, supervisor, senior leader. So that's why it's so important to have psychological safety in terms of your legal side. Simple little things, but if they can't feel free to talk about safety, you're in trouble. That's your psychological safety. So why is taking care of our people the smart thing to do? Well, I'll talk about a culture of care. It's about having a just culture. Collaborative learning, not a no-blame culture. You can't have a no-blame culture, because then people will actually do stuff. They feel free. They can do anything they want. Nobody's going to blame me. You've got to have those parameters, those boundaries, but it's about having this collaborative learning culture. It's about understanding why we do what we do. We all do things that we don't really understand, but every one of us, whether you're the CEO or the car park attendant, doesn't matter. We all do things that our minds aren't really aware of. So we can't go pointing fingers without understanding. And if we understand a bit, say, oh, okay, I get that. I've done that. Let's talk about this. So you're not pointing fingers, because if you point a finger, you often get two back. That's not being rude, but it happens. Yeah, you might be leaving the meeting, and if you turned around, you might be getting two fingers at you if you've been pointing your finger. And it's about leadership. Most of the inconsistent leadership we see out there causes problems. If you've got consistent leadership, honest leadership, you're going to go a long, long way towards this psychological safety. It builds the trust. So they're the three things I'm going to talk about. This is our safety culture map that we use globally. It's a little bit like the Energy Institute map, but we say actually you can't get better culture by just keeping moving in a straight line. You've got to look at it differently, because often, if you look in the middle bit there, broad compliance, most of the companies we work with are in this broad compliance. You've got to be, haven't you, really? But they become system obsessed. And I can't see any of you out there, but I bet that there's a lot of you nodding now. So yeah, we're actually system obsessed. Too many bits of paper. Something goes wrong, oh, more paperwork. That'll work, won't it? How many people have got duplicated systems, duplicated work processes? A lot of companies we work with, big global organizations, have taken a step back, and some of them have got 35 to 40% duplicated or outdated systems still in their in their data set, where people are trying to access the right things to do and they don't really know. So we say you've got to look at things differently to move your safety culture on, get to compliance. And it's about being human focused, about listening to your people. It's about ownership of safety. It's about trust. It's about listening, not talking to. All these sort of things that come through. And I'll show you the benefits of those in a minute. But it's about looking at safety differently. There is a big movement out there about safety. It's just about listening to people. And that's about engaging. It's about engagement. Culture of care is about engaging with people, listening to them to understand, valuing them. Because if you listen to people, they're going to, you value their opinion. Oh, that's nice. They actually care about me. They care about what I feel and what I think. And they'll go and spread that, communicate that amongst their colleagues. That's how you start to build this culture up, from the top and from the bottom. And again, data obsessed. We get system obsessed. We need data. Why do we need all this data? Because it's traditional from the last century. Directors need all the data they can get, so they can spend a lot of time looking at it and analyzing it and give it to people. So we tell people to measure a near miss or a near hit. I was sat with a group of directors, 6 people, said, yep, we're going to do this near miss reporting, Kate. I said, that's fantastic. What are you doing it for? Oh, so we can measure how many we get. Well, why don't you actually find out why it was a near miss? Because why is pretty important. So, and if they've got 6 different answers from 6 different directors, how the hell are the people supposed to know what to measure? So it's very subjective, isn't it? And they need X reports by the end of the month. We want 20 near miss reporting every month. Every single company that does this, we see a spike at the end of the month, and it's all about, oh, so-and-so didn't have his high vis done up, or his shoelace was undone. It's not qualitative data, it's quantitative. What's the point? Do we actually get the right data? So data obsession is a big thing. We need to turn that around and look the other way. Value your people, get their opinion, get their input. Why did those things happen? What can we learn about it? Not data for data's sake. Worst thing in the world. And you think about it, successful organizational cultures are built on relationships, not data. That's about engagement. That's about engagement. So culture of care promoting psychological safety. What is psychological or safety, as it says up there, just to see if you're awake? It's the belief that you won't be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. Safe to talk about, safe. Shared expectation. It's held by everybody, the teammates, including your leaders, because the leader's part of the team. You're not separate, you're part of that team. Will not embarrass, reject, or punish them for sharing ideas. Taking risks or soliciting feedback. Taking risks is a big way to learn, isn't it? Huge way to learn. We try and eliminate risks, but sometimes that's quite an interesting way to look at how we can improve things. So that's your psychological safety. How do you promote that? It's about establishing an open, clear, and respectful communication culture. Ambiguity drives stress. It's having this open and clear. Our brains don't like ambiguity. It causes us stress. We take a step back. So consistent leadership is key. If you're all coming out as leaders with the same message, wow, is that going to promote or drive away ambiguity? People will actually latch onto that. We understand. Reframing failure and mistakes as opportunities for learning and growth. Isn't that a great way to actually stop pointing fingers at people? What can we learn from this? How can we share that learning? So it's reframing to the positive is a massive driver of psychological safety. Take a supportive and consultative approach to leadership. Yeah. Ask them what they're doing. How are they doing it? What could they do better? Don't tell them all the time what to do. Get them to learn and actually support that learning. Again, it drives that value for those people. They feel valued and valuable. And if that's consistent, you're building that psychological safety, you're building that culture of care, you're building that learning organization, which is where we need to be to promote and improve our safety cultures. Not just safety cultures, I keep saying safety, and I'll tell you in a second, it's about our culture. It doesn't matter whether it's safety. So many companies look at safety. Oh, we've done safety. Let's go to well-being. Oh, let's go to quality. Well, it's not. It's about your culture. And I'm going to prove that to you. A lot of people focusing and spending a lot of money on well-being. Focus on your culture. It will drive well-being as well as it drives safety and quality and everything else. And again, I'll show that, share it with you. So why do we need to take a step back? This is from the HSE. And as you can see here at the top, people's made an error. Do we point fingers at them? They made an error. Well, maybe it wasn't their fault. They slipped. Maybe there's a reason why. Maybe somebody hadn't picked up a toolbox. Maybe it's housekeeping. Why aren't they housekeeping? Can they be bothered? Are you helping them? Are you promoting it? Are you rewarding them and promoting good things happening? Or are you always looking for bad things? If you go out looking for good things, wow, is that again going to promote some engagement, some psychological safety? If you're always picking on bad things going out there, they're going to hide things. You're never going to promote psychological safety. Even worse with violations. Yeah. Routine violations. Everybody's doing it. Why are they doing it? Find out. Don't tell them off and point fingers. Discuss, agree a change. There might be a reason they're doing it, which you could learn from, could be better. So all these things we used to blame people on or about and point fingers at them, there's reasons they're doing it that we need to learn from. And if we can learn from those and listen to our people, value them, we're going to promote this better culture. Of course, as I said before, you can't have a blame culture or no blame culture. Some people will actually push the boundaries and they do need that HR intervention, the one at the bottom. If they're optimizing just for themselves, then we need to sort something out. But all the other violations, there's a reason for it. Let's find out what it is. That's going to promote psychological safety. Let's find out. Let's work with these people, with our frontline, with our supervisors. Why did that happen? What can we do about it? How can we make it better? Yeah, you'll learn a hell of a lot more. So what culture are you promoting with your incident investigations? You think about your own ones. I was with a company a couple of weeks ago, and I asked about incident investigations. Who's been involved in it? And they were going, "Oh, yeah, me." Your body language you pick up. So obviously it wasn't a good place to be. But it is dead easy, isn't it, to do the easy thing? Just point finger, blame somebody, and crack on. Yeah, sorted that one. Who was involved? Did they break the rules? Oh, write your report, put it down as human failure. It's always human failure, isn't it? It's not. It's the environment. It's things happening around them that makes people fail 95% of the time. And then you do disciplinary action, you have 3 yellow cards. How does that make them feel? How does it make the colleagues feel? Oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to mention that again. I'm not going to fess up to that because I'm going to get blamed. So they start to hide things. If you haven't got this culture of care, this culture of psychological safety, it's not a very good place to be. They'll be hiding things. Job done, crack on. Yeah. Is that inspiring for people? No, it's not at all. So if you've got that culture, if you're reinforcing that culture of blame, of whatever, through your instant investigations, that's just going to keep your culture where it is and you'll never move on. Yeah. Have you improved anything? Questions to ask yourself. Have you learnt anything? Are people more likely to report incidents in the future? Not if you've got a blame culture. They're not if you point your finger. Have you reinforced people's perception of a blame culture? You probably have, unless you're listening to understand and listening to learn. Have you had a positive impact on the safety culture of your organization by pointing fingers? No, people aren't. If they're scared to talk up and share their information they've got because they're going to get blamed for it, you haven't got psychological safety. You will learn nothing and you will not move your culture on. You feel good about yourself? Well, maybe some managers do, and they're the sort of people we usually have a sit down with and an arm around the shoulder and a chat about, because you shouldn't feel good about that. You should be challenging the people above you about why are we doing this? What are we getting from this? What's the point? What's in it for us? Yeah. So what we're saying, investigators need to recognize the impact they and the language they use have on other people's perception of safety culture. You can transform your safety culture through your incident investigations by turning that language to the positive, by turning the blame culture to a learning culture, by listening to people to understand, not telling them. We can actually have this learning review that transforms organizations into a learning organization. And I've seen it happen quite quickly. If they feel psychologically safe, you will share and learn so much more as a team, as an organization, and that's a great, great place to be. Language drives your behavior, so reframing the positive. It's how as you as leaders make people feel. You think about as a leader, a supervisor, whatever you are, people often remember how you made them feel. Don't always remember what you said, what you did, but they always remember how you made them feel. Think about that in your incident investigations. They go and tell their mates, it's bloody awful, I wouldn't go in there, mate. They're going to hide stuff. They're not going to come out to, I made a mistake here. So it's really important. Southeast Rail transformed their culture by moving from incident investigation to learning review. They learned so much more. And once they had the right leadership in listening to them and valuing them and learning, and they understood, yeah, actually this is change, then massive increase. Near miss becomes a safety concern. You get a lot more feedback because it's a bit of ownership. If I'm concerned about something, it's me. I'm not being told to have a near miss, which is this or that. It's my actual own opinion. So near misses moving to safety concerns are really, really impactful. And if you think about it as your culture moves forward, just have any concerns. If anybody's concerned about anything, let's talk about it. So it doesn't matter whether it's safety or quality or, well, whatever. That's a great culture. That's what we should be aiming for. That's the top of the tree. And here's a culture of language drives behaviors. Just get it done. Coca-Cola, Ken Woodward talks around the world on this stuff. What happened to Coca-Cola? Yeah, there's your language. Just get it done. What's that saying to people? Yeah. Time doesn't matter. You don't matter. You just want the job done. And that's what they were focused on when Ken got injured. And I'll talk about that later. The language at CHEP, as I said, a Brambles company. Hugh, I went round with, European Director of Safety. The front line came up to him and started chatting about opportunities to improve the site for them, for others. They could share at other sites. Fascinating. They had 30%, I think, separation of forklift trucks to people. They started working with the front line. They're up to 90+% now, working with the front line, making it better. Yeah. They used to investigate problems and point fingers. They changed all that. Took time. Now, what a place to be. Absolutely fantastic. Psychological safety is right through the company. They care about the people, they value them, this culture of care. So another reason we can't blame people, as I said, we all do stuff. Well, let me just share something with you then. Hopefully, some of you might have seen this before. You can follow the purple dots or the red dots. Hopefully, you can all see purple dots. Well, if you stare at the middle, some of you might see green dots. Some won't. So we can't go out there blaming people. Say, well, didn't you see the red dot? No, I didn't. I saw the green one. I didn't see the green dots. I saw the red ones. Yeah, we all do things differently. So it's taking a step back, judging softly, as I say, before we point fingers at people. Let's just try and understand. Here's another one. Again, some of you might have seen this before. This is in the Louvre. Some of you might see an amorous embrace, but actually there's 8 dolphins there. Kids see dolphins. You see things based on your experience. So you've got new guys coming into your team. They're new into your sector. They might see things differently. We could learn from that, but don't go blaming them because they haven't got the experience to see the dolphins or the amorous embrace. If you see a dolphin there, there's a baby dolphin there. I don't know if you can see my pointer. There's another dolphin at the top there, 3 dolphins. So there's 8 dolphins there. We do have a bit of a laugh with that. If you can't find the dolphins within 6 seconds, you're obviously corrupted. But we see things differently based on our experience. So we can't go blaming people. And here's a real life client case where we like as humans to save time, effort, energy. Yeah, simple as that. We've got to take this into account before we blame. Why did you do that? Well, because it was the quickest way. Okay, well, you know there's a path. Didn't you take the path? No, because we don't. As humans, psychologically, we're driven to save time, effort, energy. And here's a real case study. So this is a big site, very big site. Over here on the left is the factory, on the right are the offices. The lorries come in on the top right, go down the factory, and everybody leaves by the exit on the top left. Now, 5 o'clock, the office is empty, and there's a path down the bottom there and all the way at the top, and it's quite a long way. Now, as humans, psychology, we're driven to save time, effort, energy. So when I'm presenting face to face, I say, right, which way do you think people went? Well, of course, they went across the yard. Quickest way, saving time, effort, energy. How many times have you, been on a path in a park or something? You're supposed to go up and left. Actually, everybody cuts the corner. We all do it. Yeah. So what did they do? They put a sign up. Oh, that'll work, won't it? I mean, how many people use signs and think, well, I've put the sign up, that'll definitely work. Well, it doesn't. People might look at it once. So which way did they go? Straight across the path again. We need to understand we're driven by psychology. So what they did, the safety manager went out with a yellow card, 3 yellow cards, and you're sacked. Now that's pretty heavy stuff. So what do you think the people did? And I'm going to guess that most of you think, well, I don't want to get sacked, but the driving force of psychology really drives what we do. And they walked across the yard again. So what they had to do is build a zebra crossing across the yard. They couldn't move the offices too much, or the factory, far too expensive. And they understood that human behavior is a big, big driver of what we do. So they built this path, they talked to the front line, they learned a hell of a lot. And by doing that, by valuing those people, understanding what we do, they got a lot more out of those people, and they learned a lot more, and they developed a lot more. They got innovation, everything coming through just by accepting, do you know what? We're going to work with you on this. So fascinating, the power of psychology on what we do. So take a step back and judge softly in your incident investigations. They're probably not doing it on purpose. And leadership is key, absolutely key. Clear, consistent, honest leadership. So I would say to you all out there, as I do at conferences and often write it down, or we get votes on machines and stuff, what makes a good leader? If you all think of a good leader you've had before in the past, and hopefully you have, what was their good trait? Were they honest? Did they shout at you? Did they pinch your ideas and tell people they were theirs? Did they engage with you? Did they listen to you? The traits of a good leader are pretty consistent, and a bad leader are pretty consistent. So I would say to you, if you're doing traits of a bad leader, stop it, because it doesn't do anybody any good. But this is at the IOSH conference, quite a few hundred people there, and we had a voting system. And this is what they came up with. 350 people came up with inspirational, listening, communicating, authentic, trust, all those really, really good words, integrity, open. That makes a good leader. That inspires confidence and trust. That promotes psychological safety. If you've got all of that stuff. And what I would say to people out there is one of my big drives, really. We should have leaders at every level of an organization. If a supervisor's managing 2 people, or a foreman managing 3, 4, 5 people, they should be leading them, inspiring them, not just managing them. We should be managing things, but inspiring people. We should be honest with everybody, build that trust, listen, because we can learn from that. Promote that psychological safety. We can learn all this. Then maybe we won't have the incidents to investigate in the first place, because we're learning all the time. We're being proactive, not reactive. So you might not have to investigate anything, an incident or an accident, if we're listening and learning. And my next question to everybody is, can anybody be a leader? It's a bit of a trick question, because if you want to be, and you've got the right traits, then you can be. Yeah. And here's a good example. If somebody says to me, oh, my boss is right, old turkey. Well, actually, a turkey can be a leader. It's about your behaviors. I'm fascinated by this. So leadership is about behaviors. Even a turkey can be a leader. And they're not supposed to be very intelligent. But look at that. He's counted them all. He's letting them all across. So his behavior shows that turkey's a leader. Massive thing about behaviors. Here's another one. When people tell me that their boss is a donkey, well, actually, even a donkey can be a boss. It's about your behaviors as a leader. There we go. Whoops. So the donkey let people out and even let them out first. No followership there. I'm not a great believer in followership, but it is about your behaviors, how you make other people feel through your behaviors. Do you value them? Do you make them feel valuable? Do you make them feel cared for? That is so key to promoting cultures. And here's one of our sort of partner companies who's done a lot of work on this. We've got our own leadership um, triptych here. But the key thing there in the middle is they've done this research around the world for many, many years amongst different genders, races, organizations. The three things that are consistent for all of us as leaders is being honest, consistent, and acting with integrity. Yeah, that consistency is key to building trust, the honesty and the integrity. Then you will start to build this culture of care. You'll start to promote psychological safety. You will become a proactive learning company and hopefully not have the incidents and accidents to deal with, or certainly not as many. And here's some proof. This is done by the, who is it? The Engage for Success. Sorry, that's the name of the organization. Fascinating. Been working with them for many, many years. And this actually happens on the left-hand side again. Some of you might have seen this. And this is the most photographed slide at conferences. On the left-hand side, if you don't feel cared for, if you don't feel valued or valuable, you're down on the left-hand side, distracted, anxious, think less clearly, reduced memory, weakened immune system. I just think about that on the left-hand side, because you get cortisol in your blood. Nobody cares about you. It's an awful place to be, isn't it? On the right-hand side, where people are engaged, they feel valued and valuable, you've got psychological safety. In fact, you could put psychological safety across the top there, couldn't you? More psychological safety, they'll be more positive, willing to collaborate, able to learn, creative, innovative. Yeah, what a place to be. That's promoting organizational and individual resilience there, because you've got more oxytocin in your blood. So you can put honesty across the top. I put emotionally intelligent leadership. I talk about that when I'm working with people and coaching. But you could put psychological safety across the top, culture of care. More you care about your people, the more you get on the right-hand side. That's where you need to be as an organization. Because if you're not, on the left-hand side, if people don't feel valued or cared about, you're going to get absenteeism and presenteeism. Presenteeism is whether your eyes are open, your ears are open, but your mind's somewhere else. It's in the pub with your mates. Not a very good place to be when you're doing some heavy work, etc. And those people on the left-hand side take 10, 12 days off a year because nobody cares about them. They don't feel good. Incidents, accidents, of course they're going to happen there. People aren't looking out for each other. They don't care. Nobody cares about them. Of course they're going to have the accidents and incidents. And of course, litigation, that's where that comes in as well. But on the right-hand side, if people are being positive, collaborating, learning, innovative, creative, willing to get involved, of course your safety is going to improve. Absolutely. And does. I'll mention Coca-Cola at the end. Quality improves. Of course it would. Why wouldn't it? Well-being improves. Well, hold on. I thought well-being was something separate we need to focus on. Bikes and bananas, as my very good friend Carolyn Yeoman talks about. Dr. Carolyn Yeoman talks about. Well-being is an output of your culture. Yeah. Save yourselves millions of pounds investing in these yet another initiative. Focus on your culture, and I'll prove it to you. Productivity goes up. Companies we work with that have moved to this right-hand side that don't focus on productivity, they focus on caring about their people. Productivity is going up 14, 15, 16%. Yeah. Targets aren't quite so important anymore if you care and value for your people. Customer interaction. Of course, people are better there. Yeah, they've got more wherewithal, they're more positive. That's impact on the brand, isn't it? Quality of work in life. That's what we should be doing. As leaders, managers, organizations, it has to be about the quality of work in life for your people. They come into work and they feel pretty good. What a great place to be. So all these good things that your culture will drive, retention, recruitment. Who wants to work for a company or a team or whatever it is where people are on the left-hand side? They're not going to stay. You might have to, but not a good place to be, is it? Not a good place for the organization to have those people. So on the right-hand side, you improve retention, recruitment, all this good stuff just from your culture. When I'm talking to senior leaders, I then talk about sustainability and corporate social responsibility, because that's the language they're hearing. The operations people in the middle there. And again, I've done some work with Dr. Paul Pritchard. He advised Tony Blair's government on sustainability. He's spoken at the UN in China on sustainability. He's advising all sorts of different organizations. And we did the co-research into that. And and proved that if people are on the right-hand side, feel engaged, they're more likely to go out into the community and do things with charities, with all this other stuff. And again, as organizations, we should be caring about the quality of working life of our people and the communities we're working in. Why wouldn't we? That's what the impact we have. So again, it's going to improve that. And that's your brand reputation. And of course, all this is about risk. Yeah. Every one of those you've got wrong leads to more risk for the organization. So all the way through, this culture of care is moving your organization, your teams, your brand to less risk. So I've been talking about this stuff and I love it. I think it's fantastic, but does it really work? Is it just me talking about it? But this is what some of our clients are saying. 60% reduction in accidents within a year. Even we were surprised at that. Yeah. Our performance in health, safety, and well-being has significantly improved. Interestingly enough, and I won't say actually, well, interestingly enough, the bottom one there, PD Ports, Dave Jones and Russ McCallion, lovely guys, and they got this. It's taken them time, but they've moved from many accidents a month to a couple of years ago they had 0. Took time, effort, energy, but every year they got better and better by promoting this culture of care, by getting the leaders to be consistent, acting with integrity, understanding culture of care, valuing people, making people feel valuable, engaging with them. And what they came back with, I asked them, we've been working with you on safety for X amount of years, and they came back with this. And this is what made me think about 8 years ago to start talking about culture of care. Improved employee engagement. We didn't ask them about that. Vital subject of safety, great, with significant productivity and efficiency improvements as a result. That came out of this culture of care, or cultural safety, as we call it. It's not just about safety, it's everything else that will improve. And that was from the HR director of the group. Since we've got on and we work with other people in the group, with senior leaders. So lots of great ideas came out of there by having this approach of caring about your people, valuing your people, promoting the psychological safety where it's safe to talk. That's what we need to be doing. So there are 3 really key feedbacks we had from our clients, global clients. So I've talked about the legal thing briefly, and the smart thing to do, because your business performance, your people performance will all improve through psychological safety, a culture of care, becoming a learning organization, proactive, not reactive. But it's also the right thing to do for our people. It's absolutely the right thing to do. And here's why. Business leaders worldwide must raise the bar on employee engagement. Increasing engagement is vital to achieving sustainable growth for companies, communities, which I think is really important, and countries. This is being recognized globally now. Gallup came out with that. They've taken some of this research. They've been listening. That is really key to proving that psychological safety, culture of care does actually work. Engagement is key to improvement. Some more research. Take fewer unhealthy days as a result of physical or mental illness. That's really interesting. I'm doing a lot of neuroscience research. Nigel Girling, a very good friend of mine, who again advised government, he worked with Branson, he's big into his neuroscience. And we're always looking to just move on a bit and understand a bit how we make decisions, why we make decisions. But neuroscience is showing us people take fewer unhealthy days as a result of physical or mental illness if they're engaged. That's because your cortisol is moving into oxytocin. Less cortisol, more oxytocin. That's your hug drug. That's your positive one. And that impacts on both physical and mental illness. And what we're finding in neuroscience is mental illness. You can take an aspirin or a paracetamol or an ibuprofen, the same as you can with physical illness, because the chemicals in our brain have the same impact, whether it's mental or physical. So really interesting stuff coming out. And we're looking into how leaders can make decisions based on where their minds are, how they're feeling at the moment mentally. Engaged employees less likely to be diagnosed with a new disease in the next year. I thought that was well-being, wasn't it? No, it's not. It's your culture that's promoting this. Less likely to be newly diagnosed with anxiety and depression. I think that's the most fascinating thing I learned from the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, as they used to be called. That's fascinating. Yeah, that's about your culture. It's about making them feel good. It's about valuing them. Quality of working life. Yeah, psychological safety. They feel safe to talk. What a great place to be. Yeah. So again, we've got all these different initiatives going on. Safety, quality. It's about your culture. Engaged employees. Better quality of working life. Of course it is. Yeah, what a great place to be if you're valued and cared for, if you're free to talk and not get laughed at or shouted at. More resilient, of course, it's going to make us more resilient and more engaging with the community. We've proven it. Yeah. What happened with one company we worked with, they were doing a lot of work in the community. A new CEO came in who had no focus on people. It was all about policies, procedures, rules, regulations. But he was a good leader. They brought him in from a big company, so he must be good. And within 3 to 4 months, that whole company felt like they become a number. They weren't cared for. They stopped working in the community. Yeah, one person impact. So these organizations that employ these leaders have been out there for, probably failing in big companies because they work with a big company, getting back in again. A little bit controversial, but we've seen it. Yeah, the impact they can have. And here's the sort of final slide. Again, I met Ken Woodward a couple of times and get on really well. Ken, I love him. It's great. But what happened at Coca-Cola is there a productivity focus? Just get it done. Just get it done. Language drives our behaviors. Well, the language drove his behaviors, and he knew he shouldn't have done it, but he did it. And people said, oh, he knew he shouldn't have done it. It drives our behaviors. Language is a huge driver of behaviors. And they've got a 2.6 million fine from the HSE. That was a long time ago, so it's a big, big fine. And what do? They said, right, people, what are we doing wrong? And everybody said, you don't care about us. There's a culture of care. Don't listen to us. Nobody cares about us. So what they did change, and they reduced their procedures by 40%. They realized they had so many duplicated procedures. They didn't care if people follow the wrong one or not. That culture of care again. They increased productivity by 18% by not focusing on targets so much anymore, by focusing on the people. Became a proactive learning culture. They listened to understand. They didn't tell. They listened to the front line who make decisions based on information, not instruction. That's where you're going to learn. They could change things. Innovation comes through every single time we work with companies that move to this culture of care. The guys know it, but why would they share it with you if you don't care about them? British Aerospace, a massive, massive impact from the frontline guys who always knew what to do, but nobody cared about them. When they did, they had the honesty, the integrity, the consistency as leaders. They started to feed that back. Huge impact. So innovation is happening all the time. Became proactive, less absenteeism, less presenteeism, and less risk for the organization all the way through. So all this is related. Everything's integrated here. It's not about risk, quality. It's about your culture, promoting this. And hopefully I've proven that to you. So psychological safety is absolutely key, and key to perhaps not having as many accidents and incident investigations in the first place. Yeah. So that's my message to you all today. So thank you very much. That's for myself. Thanks for attending. Hopefully you're all still there. I can't actually see you. You might have all gone. I don't know. But I'll stop sharing and take any questions if you have them.
Thank you very much, Kevin. So we've had a couple come in throughout. So the first one is, how would you advise moving from being more system and data obsessed to being more human focused? What's the best way to do that?
Listen to people, find out why you are data obsessed, go through your data. I think Kier Construction did it as well. They had 35% duplicated, this and the other, always focusing on systems. Start listening to people. Learn from them. You don't have to put paperwork in all the time. Take a step back, start listening to people, start becoming a proactive organization, not reactive. Because by doing more paperwork, you're just reacting to everything. Oh, we better do this, we better do that because that's happened, that's happened. Take a step back and learn why things have happened. Do you need that extra paperwork? Do you need more systems? Or can we just find out from people and learn from those people and go back and change the systems we've got already to be better? Do we need as many? We don't know until we start listening.
Thank you. So the next one was, how do we as leaders best analyze and actively implement/act on qualitative feedback?
Listen and do. It's as simple as that. A lot of people go out and listen to people say, oh, I've got all this data here. Well, loads of data. Great. Thanks, guys. They do nothing about it. If you do something about it or if you can't do something about it, if you let them know you can't do something about it, but thank you anyway, this is why we can't. This is information, communication thing that's key. If you can do something about it, do something about it and say, thanks very much, guys. This is what we've done because of your feedback. You will then start to get more and more qualitative feedback. But you have to be honest, open, integrity has got to be there. But if you start doing it, people see you doing it. And you know what? Again, your front line are the best communicators you've got. If if Dave says to Alison or something, I told them this and they've done it. Alison will go, oh, are they? Well, I'm going to go and find something. You're making them feel valued and valuable, and they'll tell their people. And that's how you start to get the qualitative, not the quantitative. Hopefully, you'll get a lot of quantitative data that will be qualitative. You will get more information coming through, but it's about doing. It's not about just collecting the data, listening. That's a step in the right direction, as opposed to talking to people, go and listen to them. But then you've got to do something about it. If you can't, you've got to let them know why. That's your communication. That's making them feel valued and valuable.
Super, thank you. And then this is an interesting one. So how do I know whether I'm a good leader? I want to be sure I'm providing a positive and caring culture.
Ask them. Be brave enough. Go and ask them. There's an open culture. How am I doing? Nothing wrong with that. A good leader looks in the mirror and apportions blame. Right? A good leader looks out the window and apportions praise. Think about that one. Good leader looks in the mirror, apportions blame, looks at himself. What am I doing wrong? Go and ask your people. Go and have a chat. If you've got psychological safety, you will get honest feedback. If you haven't, I say, yeah, great boss. But you can tell by their body language. I talk a lot about body language. You can tell how they feel, how you make them feel. And that's a really good question. And everybody should be asking themselves that. How do people feel when you walk into a room? How do people feel when you leave a room? How do you feel when you walk into that room? And how do you feel when you walk out of that room? Really powerful questions for yourself. But you're not going to know unless you can do a soft 360, a 180 review, send papers out to them, say, what do you really think? And if it's anonymous, then you will get some quality feedback. But if you've got that relationship, that culture, just go and ask them. So 360, 180, or go out and ask them. Just be bold and be brave. Let's not faff around. I'm not a great believer in faffing. Let's just crack on.
Get on and do it.
A great question. I love that question, but a very brave question as well.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of people probably do sit and reflect on as a leader. A lot of people will be thinking to themselves, am I a good leader? And sometimes it's putting yourself out there, isn't it? And reflecting
we need to.
yourself.
We need to question ourselves. We question other people. How often do we question ourselves? Too many arrogant people out there. So I'm a leader. I've got my certificate. Oh, really? I very similar question, Lauren. So I'll pick up on it because it was a very good question based on the same thing. Is I was at conference. Somebody said, "Well, my leader's a right old donkey. Can a bad leader become a good leader?" Yes, they can if they change their behaviors. Yeah, and use the right language, become honest. The problem is, if they have been a bad leader, how long is it going to be to build that trust? It might take 10 times longer than bringing in a different leader. But if they can change their behaviors, be honest, consistent, act with integrity, they can become a good leader. But before you get that engagement with the people they used to lead who don't really trust them, that's going to take a long time. So you won't get that productivity coming through, the innovation. It's building that trust will take a lot longer. But it was a great question again.
Okay. So something a little bit more specific. So somebody said, comment on the incorporation of IOGP's human factor principles into your psychological safety program.
Right. That's about judging softly. It's as simple as that. I'm not the technical guy in the company, but we use that in our training and it's absolutely shows. We run through it. We probably take a whole morning on that one slide. It's about judging softly, taking a step back. Yeah. Why did they do it? Is it our fault they did it? Is it because the company hasn't given them the right tools? Is it because, a routine violation? Everybody's doing it. Why are they doing it? Let's find out. Let's go and learn from it. But it's a very powerful slide, and we will, the lads go out there and we'll probably spend a whole morning on that. But it's absolutely about judging softly. Don't go pointing fingers till you find out, because you might have to point them at yourself.
Thank you, Kevin. I think that's everything. We've had a couple of people popping in just to say thank you and that they found it really interesting.
Thank you very much.
That's all